Though he was born and raised in the Boston area, Bradley Birkenfeld spent most of the last decade living in Switzerland, helping wealthy Americans hide their money. He was based in Geneva, where he says there may be more money-counting machines than parking meters in a country that once bragged it had more banks than dentists.
It's not Swiss money in those banks, it's foreigners. You have a culture there that has been ingrained in society about managing people's money, protected by Swiss bank secrecy.
And who has a right to that information under Swiss law?
Only the banker and the bank itself.
How unusual is it for a Swiss banker to come forward and say, this is how it works?
It's never happened before in history. I'm the first one.
When Birkenfeld, a mid-level banker with an undistinguished employment history, knocked on the door of the U.S. Justice Department in the spring of 2007, he touched off an investigation that would threaten one of the world's largest banks with extinction and shake 300 years of Swiss banking secrecy to the foundations of its underground vaults. He did it by providing inside information and documentation that his former employer, banking giant UBS, was actively involved in helping its American clients defraud the U.S. Treasury out of billions of dollars in unpaid taxes.
What do you think was the most valuable thing that you gave to the U.S. government?
The amount of clients and the amount of assets managed by UBS in the United States out of Switzerland.
And that was how much?
That was 19,000 clients and around 20 billion Swiss francs, which is about $19 billion.
Of the percentage of American accounts that you represented, how many would you say were trying to evade taxes?
My own clients. I would say about 90%.
Did people tell you this was their intention when they opened an account?
It was the unwritten rule. You didn't have to discuss it. People wouldn't fly all the way to Switzerland to open accounts just because they wanted to declare their money.
And as a private banker for UBS, Birkenfeld would help his clients invest, spend, and move their money. One example he told us about involved withdrawing cash from a customer's account, buying some diamonds in Geneva, and then smuggling them into the U.S. for the client inside a toothpaste tube. Birkenfeld claimed it was legal because the diamonds, he said, were worth less than $10,000 and didn't have to be declared at customs.
If it was legal, why did you put them in a toothpaste tube? That's why I'm having trouble with that.
Oh, it was just a way of carrying them so I wouldn't lose them. Where would you put two diamonds?
I think I'd put them in a money belt, or I think I'd put them in a case.
It was a one-time event. That's not my business. I just put them in a toothpaste tube.
You weren't trying to hide them from customs?
No, not at all.
Birkenfeld claims his motives in going to the Justice Department were mostly altruistic. He offered to wear a wire to gather evidence against high-level UBS executives in exchange for full immunity for his transgressions. But the negotiations broke down.
Based on information provided by Birkenfeld, the Justice Department and the IRS obtained a court order demanding that UBS turn over records on the 19,000 Americans believed to have secret Swiss accounts. UBS then enlisted the help of the Swiss government to try and negotiate a settlement, finally agreeing to pay a $780 million fine, cease its offshore banking activities with Americans, and for the first time in history, turn over the names of more than 4,000 U.S. citizens suspected of tax fraud. How much in tax revenue do you think you will have gained from this?
I've heard certainly the commissioner of the IRS say in the billions of dollars.
With the government claiming victory and UBS breathing a sigh of relief, the only person with grounds to be really unhappy is Bradley Birkenfeld, who the last time we saw him was wearing an electronic ankle bracelet, and the federal government had restricted his movements to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
I gave them the biggest tax fraud case in the world. I exposed 19,000 international criminals. And I'm going to jail for that?
As it turns out, while the U.S. government was using Birkenfeld's information to go after UBS, the Justice Department was closing in on his biggest client, Igor Alenikov, for tax evasion. Alenikov cooperated with the investigation and paid $52 million in fines and back taxes and got off with no jail time. But because Birkenfeld hadn't told prosecutors about his relationship with Alenikov, Birkenfeld was arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit tax fraud. He pled guilty and was sentenced to 40 months in prison, and he was not happy about it.
And you think that you should not be going to jail?
I think I shouldn't.
Even though you violated the law and you were an enabler. I mean, you were the person who were implementing these policies.
And I'm the only one going to prison. out of 19,000 accounts and no Swiss bankers?
If he had come forward and told us everything that he knew, a complete and accurate picture in the summer of 2007, we think it's likely he wouldn't have been prosecuted.
Mr. Birkenfeld says that the federal government admits that the prosecutions would not have been successful without his participation in this, and yet he is the only one that is going to jail. Is that fair?
It is not uncommon for someone to engage in criminal activity and to provide us information, but to also go to jail.
The day he walks into prison is the day you will lose a generation of tax whistleblowers.
Why do you say that?
Because no one will blow the whistle.
Stephen Cohn is one of Birkenfeld's civil attorneys and the head of the National Whistleblower Center. He believes there may be one final twist in the case that could give his client the last laugh. That's because Birkenfeld may well be entitled to collect tens of millions of dollars under a federal law that rewards whistleblowers with up to 30% of the money that's recovered as a result of the information they provide, even if they end up going to jail.
Mr. Birkenfeld has saved the taxpayers billions of dollars, brought thousands of people to justice. They should blow up his check. The Attorney General should shake his hand and look into the camera, and he should say, I want a message to every international banker that works to money launder against America. You come here to America, you'll be protected and you'll be rewarded. Get 20, get 30 Birkenfelds. Let's fix this problem.